I love the water.
No way.
Have
Yeah.
you
I
ever
just don't got it.
Yeah.
I'm really good at
It's
it.
like-
I have to
Disney.
No, it's actually
No.
Oh, yes.
Because usually what I do is like when I first read it, I want to sleep down.
It's like never been able to.
And then I also, and then I
out
get back
in
to
the
class to go
water.
on it.
Like at night in the water.
After I get on, right? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You know, and so I go on it and
Tomorrow
I, again,
is so much fun.
it's faster.
I actually went there.
Yeah.
Just more tired and therefore
No,
your perception is
I went
confused.
Yeah.
I don't believe you.
You are mistaken.
I know, what is the logic? Is it like,
Is that
why?
Wow.
Doesn't make sense.
And that's just your profile.
Someone, this is like a fundamental premise of my childhood that I know. I know, I'm like, I don't believe it.
I'll just try
I
it.
think it's different.
Should we just go and take trips with you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I hate SpongeBob.
Okay, thank you guys for coming back. And welcome to the third session of the Excel PD. I don't think we need to do introductions again. I think this is everyone from last time. So I hope you guys all had a good break. I know I did. So today, Helen's going to take you through some keyboard shortcuts, and pivot tables is going to be our main focus for today.
Hey everybody. All right, so do you guys have your Excel workbook open? Sweet. All right, and then we'll just run through this. So the first thing we're gonna do is just a very quick shortcut exercise. We find it really useful when working in Excel to just kind of get used to using a couple of the shortcuts, which we've sort of gone through before. I think a lot of us know like Control A means select all. We've kind of brought that up before. If you use Control and your arrow key, it takes you to like the next filled up cell or to the end of a range. So that one's pretty useful. Control D will fill down a whole column with any information you put in it. And so if you select a range and then Control D, it'll just put in that information all the way down. And Control R does the same thing, just to the right-hand side. So if you need to put like ones across the whole thing, you can just use Control R and it'll fill it with this whatever you have in that first cell. Control page down moves you on to the next sheet, and page up will move you like back up to the front. So if you guys want to try like Control down and Control up, that's a pretty quick way to go between sheets. All right, so we're gonna do a very quick practice with the shortcuts. So go to the shortcut practice tab, and on A2, type in the date. And then shift down to the end of the list, and that should select like all the way down to A24. That should highlight every cell all the way down to A24.
Make sure you started on the actual,
Shift down.
yeah, so
Shift
hold shift and hit down so you get to the bottom of the list.
Oh. Shortcut. Oh, it's not just any shift down.
All right, and then after you get all the way down, do Control D. And as you see that like populated the whole row for you. This is really useful for us when we're trying to, like if we wanted to categorize all the names, like, oh, these are Excel PD, move on to a different range and categorize it in a different way. Any questions so far? No? All right, so let's Control page down and move on to our next tab. So now we're gonna be recreating the same table we made last time, except instead of using formulas, I don't know if you guys remember, we did a bunch of if statements and made a table. We're gonna use pivot tables. Pivot tables automatically make tables for you by dragging and dropping fields into a little square, which I'll show you in a minute. And it's a super easy way to make tables and play around with data and just kind of find what pops out to you or what you find important. Just before you begin, your data should be organized in a tabular format, and you shouldn't have any blank rows or any blank columns. So just make sure to fill anything in when you're working on it in the future. if you have a row or a column, every type of data should be the same. So if you have dates, they should all be dates. Otherwise, like you'll confuse the pivot table. And pivot tables work on like a snapshot of your data. So anything you do in the pivot table isn't going to affect the data it's pulling from. So just know that you can do whatever you want in the pivot table and it won't actually change your raw data. All right, so this is, I don't know if you remember the table we did last time. We did teaching experience on one side, and then we pulled in the average, I think like algebra scores on the other side to see if teaching experience had any effect on average scores. So now, if you go into your student grades tab, I already pulled in all the information that we did last time, and go up to insert. And then there, the first thing on the left-hand side is a pivot table. Click on pivot table. And as you'll see here, it asks you whether you want it in a new worksheet. Let's say okay.
And you'll notice it selected the area for you, so it kind of just guesses the data that you want to put in the pivot table. So if you have your cursor in the top left corner, it kind of just guesses the entire thing. But it's good to be aware of what data it's actually selecting in case. And this comes to what Helen said, where if you have a blank column, it'll stop at that column and won't grab any data to the right of that. So that's just something to be aware of.
All right, and so now you'll see something like this, where you have all your fields and you have these squares at the bottom. And so basically you drag and drop all the fields into this quadrant here. And so I'll walk you through it real quick. So at the top left, you have filters, and you can drag a field here and filter by whatever information is there. So if you want to split out male and female, that's a good place. So you drop it in the filter, and then it lets you click whether you want to see male data or female data. Your columns is pretty self-explanatory. Anything you want to be in the table, your table columns, it'll put it there. And your rows, that's whatever data you want to be in the rows. And then your values, it's the actual data that you want to show. And so in this one, in this next example, we'll be working with the algebra scores. But you could also drop teaching experience in there. You could drop any other numerical field in there, and it'll calculate average, sum, or there's a range of options. And so we'll walk you through that. So it'll be a little more concrete in a minute. So go ahead and drop years at green dot into the rows quadrant, and in the values, drop in the grade percent. All right, and so once you have that, you'll notice that it has the count of grade percent. So the table right now is giving you how many students are actually associated with a year one teacher. So all the year one teachers at Green Dot have 558 students, but that's not really useful to us. So go ahead and right click on the table, right click and go to summarize values by, and then click average. Right. And so this is a table that we made last time with formulas and just a little bit longer. Here's everything. You want student scores. And then right click. You want the average score per year of experience. All right. Anyone else? Are you guys all at the same table? All right, so that's a really quick way to make a table like super fast, right? 5 minutes. All right.
Just to reiterate, it's important when you drag something into the values to pay attention. I know Helen said this, to pay attention to what it says there, because usually it'll go to count, but sometimes if you have numbers, it'll immediately go to sum. So you could be looking at very different data from what you think you're looking at if you're not aware of what it did when you put that category into the values.
Yeah, so sometimes you're like looking at GPAs and it says 58, and we're like, this makes no sense.
Yeah.
So you have to go down to like average or some, depends, you can make the table do a lot of things. So let's move on to another example. There's an option within pivot tables called the slicer. And so I'll teach you an example.
For those summarized values by, like if it has one it has max and min.
Yep.
Can you repeat stuff? Like if I wanted to show the max for each person with these years at Green Dot and the min, can I have?
I'm not sure.
Oh,
That's a good question.
can you
Yeah,
drop
again,
grade percent in there another time?
Yeah.
And then do min and max.
Yeah, so that's actually a great point, which I wasn't sure. Yeah, so what I just did on Bro's computer was drag that grade percent again into values. So now there's two of them there, and it shows up again in another column, and you can change that column to the minimum, or it's something different than the other one that you just.
You could do a really cool table where you show like average, min, max of any number of things here.
So it's just, pivot tables are just a great way to reshape your data and play and look at things quickly without having to redo formulas and rebuild things, which is a lot faster.
Cool. And so our next example is a real life case of ordering tacos on Tuesdays. They're $1 down the street on Tuesdays. And so KM, sometimes we put in a large order, and this is how I calculate how much everyone owes me at the end of so go to the Taco Tuesday tab and insert a pivot table.
Can we join the Taco Tuesday?
Sure, yeah. We haven't been in a while, but it needs to come back. It's such a good deal. All right, let me know when you guys are in the new tab. All right, and what you're gonna do is all the different taco flavors like chicken, marinated pork, make sure to drop them into the values. And so just practice dropping them into the values. It's a really simple table. It's dragging.
Just drag all of them.
I'm hungry now.
Yeah.
I'm hungry now.
Yeah. Almost lunchtime. All right, and so when I want to calculate how much everyone owes, or our total.
It's in the value. Yeah. 1 minute.
All right, I'll take it 1 minute.
We have plenty of time.
The tacos are pretty good, if you're wondering. Something de la Doña. Have you guys been?
Casa de Doña.
Casa de Doña. They're $1 on Tuesdays. We've ordered up to like 73 at a time.
Okay.
All right, cool. And so a couple of rows down, put in a total, like a little total area. And the formula that I use is, remember your equal sign, sum, and you want to highlight the entire row of taco meats. And you can use shift and the left and the right arrow to kind of help you highlight everything if you want to use a shortcut. And then I multiply times 1.075, and 875 is the tax rate. And that way I can calculate like tacos and taxes for everybody. Background. 1.08.
So I would just start this in cell. So just leave the total over here, and then because your equal is like it's not gonna actually be
Here,
one.
I'm gonna do
Yeah.
sum.
And then if you want
Yeah,
to
we're not
keyboard shortening, then
All of the table.
Oh, that's
and then
the
control
shift.
shift right.
Yeah, right.
So you can shift right like that.
Close this out, multiply it.
Control shift right. It'll go all the way
That's
over. It just finds the end of the line. So it's just a quick little keyboard shortcut. Yep.
Doesn't matter, 1.0875
And
is what
then
takes that.
close the parentheses
Yeah.
and then.
Uh-huh.
Close it and then yeah.
I'm pretty
Some
sure.
of the-
Yeah, 1.0.
They just seem kind of random.
This total
Yeah.
is just so I know what that number is, and then right here
So,
is the actual calculation. see some tab. Shift and fix tab. And close the parentheses. Sorry. I'm gonna do this real quick. 1.0875. Cool. All right, and so everyone has the total. So our taco order that day, I got 28,275, but I saw a bunch of you got like 31, which is fine. I probably miscalculated because I saw that you guys actually dragged everything through. And now we're gonna insert something called a slicer. And so go back up to insert and look for the slicer option.
Should be towards the right. It's pretty far.
Uh-oh, you have to be in
Oh,
the
yeah.
table.
Make sure you're selected in the
Okay.
pivot table first. So click back like under one of the meat types.
Yep. And then click name.
Be slicing.
And what that lets you do is see, if you click through the names, it tells you how much each person owes when you highlight their name.
Adam goes for 30.
So what this it's basically doing is putting a filter on the pivot table by name. So it's just you select the name and it only brings in what that person ordered.
So if you want to like do something by school and be able to click through and see the different types of data by school, that's something that you could do. Or you could just order tacos and charge everyone accurately. Either way. Cool. Everyone got that? Nice. These are moving pretty fast today. All right, and so we're moving on to our final exercise.
Question.
Yeah.
You said if we change stuff in the pivot table, it won't affect the raw data. But if you change the raw data, does it update in the pivot table or do you have to do it again?
Yeah. So when you, let's see if I see it here. If let's say you go back and you're like, oh, like actually we had 4 shredded beef tacos, not just 2. You can go back to your data, change the number, and then when you're in the pivot table, you can look at like click into the pivot table and there should be a refresh
I think you might
option.
see it in one of your previous slides.
Yeah.
So you can see in the middle there it says refresh. So you'd have to, if you went back and changed some numbers in your data, you'd have to come back to your pivot table and your pivot table would be the same. It hasn't changed yet. But if you right click on it and then hit that refresh button, it like re-pulls the data into your pivot table. One important thing to remember there is if you add a row or a column, that row or column may not be in the data even after you refresh because it had already selected the area that you're using and it's not going to know to expand. So at that point, if you're adding columns or rows, let's just make a new pivot table. But if you're just editing things that already existed in there, then you can just refresh.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes a second, like it's not immediate.
Yeah.
So give it some time. I didn't even know it was there. I usually use a button at the top.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So our final question for pivot table practice is, does parent involvement affect student SAT scores? And the measure that we'll be using to kind of think of parent involvement is PowerSchool logins. So parents can log into PowerSchool and see like their students' grades. And so we have that information. So we're going to use that to kind of make a very loose suggestion whether a parent is checking up on a student's grades affects their SAT scores. And so the steps that we're going to take to kind of finish this is we're going to make a pivot table to pull in the maximum SAT score for each student. And then we're going to use the parent PowerSchool login number. So if a parent logged in 20 times this year, we're going to join that to the pivot table. And then we're going to create another pivot table that shows whether joining the student SAT score and the parent login. And then I'll show you how to make a pivot chart for those of you that have the newest version of Excel. That's like another really direct, easy way to make charts. All right, so go to your SAT scores tab and create a pivot table. And just remember that we're pulling the max score for each student. So you want to drag in student number and the max score for the SAT total.
Student number in your rows, and then max SAT into your value.
SAT total into values. And then you got a good time.
So pivot tables are also kind of good for deduping things. So a student might have more than one SAT score. So this is really an easy way to just get one row per student here and make sure you don't have dupes. And then you have their max score.
Yeah, so if you were to go back into the SAT scores tab and do the conditional formatting that we learned last time for duplicates, then you'll see that there are a couple students that have already taken the SAT 2 or 3 times this year. And so here we're taking their highest score for our analysis purposes. Cool, is everyone there? All right. And so now we want to join the parent PowerSchool logins to student data using VLOOKUP. So I'm going to let you guys try it and see if you guys remember how to use VLOOKUP from last time. And the data is in the parent PowerSchool login tab. And join that to the SAT scores.
Okay, so we'll give you guys a couple minutes to try this one on your own, and then we'll walk through the steps. But a loose outline, you have to take the data from the pivot table you made, put it somewhere else, and then bring it.
Let's actually,
You can go over that.
I'll give you the cheat sheet for that one. So you want to take it out of your pivot table and paste it elsewhere where it's not like a live pivot table anymore. And this is the way to accomplish that using hotkeys. So go to the pivot table that you just made. And you can select all, copy, Shift 11 starts a new tab, and then Control-Alt-V will let you just paste the values, just the numbers into the new tab. To do Control, you can do Control-Alt-V. You can see there, you can pick values. And so that way you don't have another pivot table.
Rest back to 1600. Yeah. They changed it mid-year. Yeah.
I don't remember.
So, I know it was not 16, right? Oh, was that when? So they had teams.
Oh, yeah. I was the first year teaching. Yeah.
Okay, so as soon as I moved that, I no longer hold.
Yeah.
2005. I think that was the
2005, I was already teaching there.
Think about Wonder Meyer.
Really?
I was already teaching, I was already second year teaching when you went to take your SAT. Okay? It's funny.
Sorry.
No, I'm lost.
So now, so we have
Yeah.
the student number and the SAT, so it's now we just want the parent.
Yeah.
Matches.
I remember a bunch of them.
See here, some of the SAT
Let's see
scores
what
are
this
like average.
Like it equals you look at it.
So, yeah,
The
or
first
one
number
from
is
that
the
second.
second. The first number is the column you want, and the second one is whether it's a true match. or-
So you hit enter and
So is it
so we hit tab, it'll finish the sentence.
six?
And
That's what
then,
I did.
so
Because it's,
how this works, you've never used
Some
it at all.
by
Okay,
summarize values.
so this is a way to look up between two sets of data. So you have, so both sets of data have your student number. So you want to use that. So that's the first thing that you're going to select is the unique identifier between the two sets. So you want to look for this value, and you want to tell it where it makes get rid of them. And that's on this parent login page. And you just have to make sure to start with the same column that you have the data. So we start with the student number, and we want this login here.
Do control all people.
And so this is the ring that we want. And then if you just, I'm still holding down the button. You don't let go of the button, it actually tells you how many columns you want here. You don't need this. So you can look at that 6, and then, so now you say comma 6. Because you want it to say, all right, I'm looking for this, and I want 6 columns away, that's what I want you to include. And then after that, it's always just comma 0. That part's always the same. Okay. And so it went and looked for this student number, from this data, and looked for the parent login, and then pulled it back into your.
Very good. And then to get the rest.
And then, so to do that, you can just double click right here on the little form, and then just fill in that. It's just down to these two.
Whoa, look at that.
Yeah, so some of these are really high.
612 times the parent's number. Our student number.
And the table where
347.
So
Yeah, some of them are very high. Could be something going on in our school.
But this is for the 4 years the kid has been with us.
That would be much more helpful.
You know what I mean?
The range of,
Because if it's in 4 years, then your kid has been here.
yeah,
It would make sense that you have at least 400 kids.
That's
Every
the
week.
number of times
This big year.
you double click.
At least if you log in once for your kids.
and stacked it down.
This year's parents.
My goodness.
I would do that.
I would bet.
At least,
Yeah, it's like more than.
so does the VLOOKUP make sense?
Yes.
Alright, let's try it.
Oh. You.
Oh, it's that SSID instead of student number.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the state ID, and we use a different one.
Okay.
And so go ahead and do that.
Oh, yes, so the Shifty, so yeah, when you want to do the Shifty, you start with your actual cell that has data in it, and shift all, and then just hold shift down to highlight. Yeah, so you don't actually do the D yet.
Okay.
So just hold shift and down until you get to the bottom of the list. And you can do it. And then there's actually, yeah, there's actually an easy way. So here we can, so now if you hit Control D, it'll fill to where you fill down. Just Control D.
A little tiny bucket.
So that's one way to do that, but if you have a really long list, that
Yeah.
takes forever. So what you can do, so yeah, you can actually just double click that little line, and it kind of like, it's like intelligent, it knows where the list is.
Cool.
So you can
Okay.
see, if you go down here, go to the
I just did
bottom.
like the whole.
And so it went to here and then
Huh.
stopped. And it saw that your data, yeah.
This one?
And you actually don't need it.
Cool. Oh, you got it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of zeros and then there's.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So everyone got their VLOOKUP to work? All right, and so using this data, so what you now have is how many times each parent has logged in and the SAT scores. So you'll see like on row 11, like that kid's parent has logged into PowerSchool one time. I saw one that it said 347 times. So it's like some parents log in like 3 times a day. That's up to this point in the school year. All right, so you want to create a pivot table that shows whether parent logins affect SAT scores. So go ahead and start another pivot table from this new sheet that you have now and take a stab at it and show me how you would present it. Yeah.
not gonna try.
So think about what you want, like how you want it shaped.
Parent login,
Where do you want that?
what was this?
So that's gonna be the filter. So that filter's really only after you have the, yeah.
And then this is the sixth column.
Is that beyond values?
Do you remember how to draw it down?
Yeah, try it. Try it.
That doesn't work.
Yeah, so that's kind of
Also double click.
like this. So something we have going on
Tiny
here
little
is.
box on the bottom right.
Thank you. Yeah, so
There's a reason why you guys exist. So I don't know whether to go like this. Right?
Just the two lines. But it only counted the ones that have a number. So when it all together, the zeros still be, these still matter.
Oh, so this is what it's giving me. So here you have, this is what it's
Okay.
trying to say.
So we can
There's
play
one
more.
student that has 50. There's 13 students that have 50. And so
So comparing that, logging 0 times,
These, the data.
average sum,
Or wouldn't that have been
the set total was
this
negative.
one, right?
And so I would. Yeah. So I would.
So no matter how many times you log in,
I would put in the
it's not
lines.
correct.
No, so I think you're in the right place.
Yeah.
Oh, did you paste this as value? After you- Okay.
Why the average?
Now, I think that's the average versus like, have never logged in. Average for people logging in.
I don't think my monitor is something that's one for sure.
Just my phone.
So-
She was my husband.
Yes,
Like,
it is.
that's what I remember, like.
That would be the
my
value,
brother's
since
report.
what you want to see. And then we want to see by.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
And then the only other thing here is you want to make this like average. So this,
$120.
For every day.
Wow.
Like-
6 times 6 times 2.
120 at the end of this list.
What you're supposed to do.
My 120 every time. They're mad when we do 120.
All right, does everyone sort of have a pivot table? Yeah? All right. So this is how to insert a pivot table. The way I suggested you do it is that you put parent logins on one side and you get the average of the SAT on the other side so that you have, for every parent that has 0 phone calls or 0 logins, this is the average SAT score. Do you guys have something else or? Most people got here? Looked at the paper? Just messing. Cool. And so as you can look at the data and the table's kind of boring, right? You don't really see a pattern. You can't really tell whether SAT, like PowerSchool logins have any effect on it. So go back to the sheet that you created the pivot table from. So I think for a lot of you, it was like sheet 4. And go through the same process, click insert, but you're gonna look for pivot charts on the right-hand side. And Adam and I discovered that this is a new Excel feature this morning. So if you don't have the newest, it might not be there.
Oh, that's because I added school.
Oh, no, that's totally fine.
Oh.
I was looking if you had the.
Oh,
You did,
there.
yeah. It looks like
Okay.
most people have them removed, so I think we're good.
All right, and yeah, Adam doesn't have a new version.
Yeah, my laptop still has the old version, I don't have to get it charged.
All right, and what I would do is go ahead and drop the same fields into the same place. So put parent logins into the rows and put in the average of the SAT total into the values.
Same here, right?
Close, yeah.
One thing you might want to do is go in and delete the grand total
So-
from your original sheet.
Alright. Oh, this is actually a good way to test the refresh.
Yeah.
So you go back to your data and scroll all the way down to the bottom.
Let's see.
It should be the bottom row should be like a grand total, you can just delete it and then go back and refresh the pivot table. Now go back to your pivot table.
And then just delete that.
Yeah, and then right click and hit the. And so then
That's how you guys create those little charts.
I've actually never used, this is new for the charts, but it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, it's just the enumeration.
It's just like a category. And values, like, you can have like parent logins.
So 0 times, they still got a.
Parent login
And
is
so
so
you have one data because it, like,
Yeah.
test it out.
That's
Yeah, there's like this.
I would actually want to see if grades.
these, yeah, the pivot charts, yeah. The tables you can add columns to.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The data that's
Like
totally
if
different.
grades are, if like number of times a parent on,
That's
like number of controls
And error down.
GPA.
Yeah.
The GPA is tied to like homework, classwork, all that. This is more of like summary of performance for the 4 years.
Yep.
Awesome.
And then that takes a big number out for you. And so does it look like parent logins affect SAT scores at all? Should we start a big green dot push to have parents log into our school?
Yeah, so there's like a lot going on here. First off, using parent logins as a proxy for parent involvement is not really valid, I wouldn't say, but it's a good test to see, and it's interesting. And then like Susanna was saying, there's other things you can measure here. Maybe it affects grades more than SAT scores. That's more related to what parents would be checking on, or homework, missed assignments, things like that would be maybe also interesting to look at. So many different things could be affecting this.
Cool. Do you guys have any questions about pivot tables or any doubts?
Yeah, any questions, Alex? We have a lot of
Anything
time.
you want to
left over.
review from a previous session?
Any Excel questions in general.
What do you guys use the filters for?
So the filters oftentimes will put like school in there, or like race or ethnicity in there. So if we're looking at something like discipline, suspensions, out of school suspensions, and then you can have, because you actually have multiple filters in there. So you can have a gender filter, an ethnicity filter, FRL filter, and you could flip all of those around. So I can look at African American males that are free and reduced lunch, and then switch that to females, and then easily switch that to Hispanic or Latino. So that's mostly what we use the filters for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys went by really fast.
Yeah.
I thought it was actually longer. Yep.
Anytime back is always nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the shortcuts, I think they're extremely useful. It's hard, if you don't use Excel all the time, it's hard to memorize them, so it's hard to really get them built into your use of it. But if you can get a couple of them down, really just moving around the sheet is like the biggest one. So using control and the left and right arrows and up and down to jump to the bottom and top. And then also using the control shift and the arrows to select the data that you want instead of clicking and dragging with the mouse, especially if you have a huge data set, it can just clicking and dragging can take a long time. So, was there any specific ones? you wanted to look at
The
first?
fill ones, do you have to do anything first to get it to fill?
You have to start at the cell that you want to replicate. So like earlier when we were doing the date, if you started beneath the date and fill down, it's gonna fill nothing. So you have to start at like whatever you want it to do all the way down.
Yeah, so after typing the date and hit enter, you'll have to hit like the up arrow to go back into the cell with the date and then start highlighting to where you want to fill that.
I have another
Yeah.
question.
A while.
Yeah.
So for something like this chart, I'd be interested to
Oh,
put in like a line that shows the average SAT score across all of the different bars. Is there a way to do that?
I did it.
Just try my
Oh, you have to select it all?
Yeah.
Very, very possible.
Oh,
Nice.
But this is what I got,
And
which
just
doesn't
get it
really
to the
help.
right one, that's the same thing. Control
I
R.
don't know for sure.
okay,
It just fills it.
I feel like there has to be a way.
got it.
And then, like, you know, if you do one and two, and then if you highlight this and drag it over, just with your mouse,
Yeah,
then that'll just get the number
okay.
to a sequence for you.
Does that work for the fill thing too?
No, the fill thing just does exactly what you told it to.
I'm not sure.
And the fill
That's
thing
a
can
good
drag down a formula also. That's when it's most useful.
Got it.
I know in. But do you know how? Is there a way to put like an average line across on this chart?
The only way I've ever done it is by adding another column next to that and then adding another trend line. It's a little bit more involved. You have to bunch like your select data and add another axis. And then you're
Okay.
getting like to get a line to go through it.
Okay.
I have a breakdown of how to do it if you want. I'll send it to
Actually,
you
that would
later.
be
Yeah.
really helpful, thank you. Because I always just insert the line myself, and then if I like change the size of the chart, it that gets messed up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send it over to you.
Thanks.
Is this our last session?
It is, yes.
I actually have to
Actually,
head out.
No,
Guys, we
feel
need
free,
to
yeah.
let-
If you guys gotta go, feel free.
But Thank
We're
you guys so much.
pretty much done. If you guys have no other questions, we can just do the exit slip and then you guys can get some time back.
I'm almost there.
Oh.
And now I overdid it. All right, there's the exit flip info.